Perfect. So hello everyone. Thank you again for being with us today for another one of our webinars. Today we're going to be going over content creation and how you can bring your ideas to life to really get a nice campaign that you can send out to your contacts. So right off the bat, this is the campaigns section of your account. So there are different ways you can go about creating your campaign. And I'm going to walk you through all of the different ways to do so today. So over here, this is the section you get to as you click on campaigns. So as you log in, you're going to be taken to your dashboard, but you can click on campaigns and you will be redirected to this little section of your account where you can browse your templates, create your campaign by clicking on the little plus over here, or reviewing all of your previously sent campaigns. So today I'm on my account, so my brand is going to be Brewtifully Yours, which is a brewing company. I'm a bit of a coffee enthusiast, so I decided to really center my whole brand around that. And today we're going to be creating a bit of a campaign, or trying to create a bit of a campaign to promote one of my sales, promotions, anything of the sorts. So one of the ways you can create your campaign is by going into campaigns and clicking on the little plus button. But one way I like to do it is by first going into the brand section of my account. So what this does is that it takes me to a specific a section of my account that's specifically dedicated to my brand. That's the area in my account where I can add my logo, my brand colors, and so on. Everything that gives all the visual elements that really says, hey, this is who I am, and that make it possible for you to generally create a branded, already personalized campaign. So as you can see over here, I clicked on brand and I went to smart templates. Over here, you can add your logo. I've added mine. You can add different ones that you can switch between. You can also add your brand colors, either by adding your reference codes or by adding a new color by using our color wheel. You can also add button colors and so on, everything that really just tells us who you are. Once you're satisfied with it, you can just click on publish and that's automatically going to be added into your account. So I'm just going to click exit because this is all already set up the way I like it. I'm going to click on exit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little create button. This serves as a shortcut widget that takes me directly to campaign creation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on create campaigns, and this is going to take me to our editor. Now, by default, when you're creating a campaign this way, there is an already set template. That's our default template that you can work with or personalize to your liking. It gives you a solid base just to kind of familiarize yourself with what you want in your campaign, a few elements that are more dynamic and so on. So what you could do if you'd like to start up with this, you can just click edit email. And now you get into our block editor. So you can play around with this, you can modify it. This is a little bit of a editor menu that I'm going to take you over step by step just in a second. But this is just to give you an idea of what that looks like when you decide to create a campaign based on our default template. So this is the general look. You can drag, you can drop, you can delete elements to it, and you can really make it your own. Now I'm just going to close this because, again, this is just our default template, but you could change your template and choose amongst many others that we already propose, we already offer. So you have the free templates, which you can sort through based on different filters. It's going to take a little second to browse, but this is the free templates that you can also choose from. If there is a design you particularly like, you can take it and make it yours purely by adding different elements to it. But you could also filter depending on your usage, industry, seasonal. For example, Halloween is right around the corner, and how about you just pick a Halloween themed template and play around with that? It's going to give you all kinds of options to pick from. So these are just the free templates. Of course, as you get a plan, you get access to many more, which you can further play around with. You also have professional templates, which are just a little bit different. They're a little bit more simple in their approach of their design, but all of these templates have been specifically designed to be as compatible with the email services as possible. So meaning when you receive them, whether it be in dark mode, light mode, laptop, or mobile, they're all going to look good and compatible with the platform. So adaptability is a huge part of email marketing, because usually if you're creating your own email templates, sometimes you can look funky. Your blocks don't look quite as good as you would envision. So choosing an already designed template really spares you all the hassle. You can just really play around with it, make it your own, and avoid all the hassle that comes with making your own template from scratch. So here are different types that you can choose from. You can also sort through different industries, different usages, and so on. But what really, really resonates with me is the fact that you can use a smart email template. I'm just going to clear out the filters. I'm just going to go into free template. I'm going to choose smart emails. And that's going to give me all kinds of already personalized email templates. You could also start from scratch if you're maybe a little bit more tech savvy, if you're more comfortable with HTML coding and really want to fully bring in your own template and design. You could start from scratch and either start off with an HTML template or a blank page that you can populate with your own blocks and so on. I'm just going to quickly go into my brand section. I want to change up my logo a little, just to make it a little cuter. So as you can see, I have multiple ones I can choose from, and I really want this one to be the one added to my template. So I'm going to publish the change. I'm going to click exit. I'm going to go back into campaigns. And as you can see, I've already created my draft and I'm able to find it over here. So I'm going to go back, click on my draft, change my template. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a smart template. So a smart template is essentially a template that already has all of your brand identity already added and configured into it. So you don't have to do any changes yourself. Your logo's already there, your colors are already there. All you have to really do is bring in your content and make it your own. So I want to send out a promotional campaign today. So I'm gonna go for this one, but I could really choose any other that's offered to me. I could choose this event invite. I could use this feature product category. It's really up to what really resonates with you at the moment. So right now I want a promotional campaign, so I'm gonna go ahead and select this one. A little warning tells you that as you choose a new template, your changes are going to be discarded. So if you're already working in your template and you suddenly midway choose to switch between templates, just keep in mind you might lose your content. So just make sure that before you're making the changes that you're fine with losing the progress you've made. So I'm going to continue anyway. And here I am. So this is exactly the template that I wanted to work with. As you can see, it already has my elements to it. It already has my small little logo, which I can make bigger if I wish. But right now, I'm just going to walk you through the different elements that you want to keep in mind as you work with a smart template. A smart template, as I said, is already personalized with your brand, which means that, for example, I cannot change the color in my buttons because they're already added and configured with my brand settings. If I wanted to really play around completely with colors, with logos, and so on, then in this case, a regular campaign might work best for you. So as you get into the editor, you have a little menu on the left. It's divided into three big sections. You've got your content, your rows, and your settings. Your settings essentially gives you the global settings of your campaign. That would be, for example, the width of your campaign, how large you want it to be, or how narrow you want it to be. The content alignment, would you want your text to be more on the left? Would you want it to be centered? As well as essentially the big elements that structure your campaign. That would be your brand color, your background color, your content area color, and so on. So by default, the content area width is going to be 600 pixels, but you could make it bigger or narrower, depending on your liking. I'm going to stick with the 600. We can also play around with the background color. Right now, this background color is white, but I could play around and maybe make it a little bit more pink. And as you can see, that's going to change the background color. Now, this might be a little bit more intense, so I'm going to stick to white, but you can essentially choose any color in the color wheel. You could also just copy and paste your color code if you have one. It's really intuitive in that sense. For example, here I have a content background color that I can change. Right now it's transparent, but I could make it green, for example. Could make it black, I could make it any color in the wheel. But again, you need to keep in mind that it has to be, first of all, aesthetically pleasing, second of all, aligned with your brand, and third of all, compatible. Compatibility is something that's primordial if you want your content to be readable. So we're going to be touching base on that a little bit later as we go through the demo, but essentially, your content needs to be readable, visible, in both light mode and dark mode. So you could also set up a background image, either by uploading one or pasting the URL. Personally, I wouldn't recommend just sticking to something a little bit more simple. Simplicity is usually key with emails because they can be interpreted differently depending on which emailing service your receivers are using. Some people might be on Outlook, some people might be on Gmail. The result might differ, so in my humble opinion, keep it simple just to keep it aligned for everyone in your list. So in the settings, you can also change the font of your email. You can choose between a few simple ones, Arial, Bitter. If you like maybe a little bit more intricate ones, like you've got Times New Roman, Bitter. They're generally pretty simple fonts, but they work good and they're compatible with a lot of email marketing services. Over here, all the way down, is your pre-header section. So when an email is sent out, your receiver are going to first see the subject line. That's the main big line in bold that tells them what your content is about, what you're sending them. Your pre-header comes a little bit under the subject line. So think of it like a lighter font title that tells you a little bit, that gives you a preview of what's going to be into the content of the campaign. So for example, if the subject line is about a promotional offer, your pre-header can be a little bit about a hint of what the promotional offer is going to be. So for example, I want my pre-header to be, let's say, a limited time offer on my blends. So I can just copy and paste it here, and it's going to appear automatically in my campaign. So I can add emojis. There is a limit of 130 characters, so that's something to keep in mind. But your pre-header shouldn't include any crucial information. It's really just a preview of your text. So your morning just got better, limited time offer on all blends. Fantastic. And if you ever find yourself in a bit of a lack of inspiration, you can always generate one using our AI tool. So generate your pre-header using it, and yeah, you can get going. So that was the settings. Now we can move on to the rows, which is a very important and crucial part of making your campaign, because the rows essentially structure your whole content and campaign. It allows you to add spaces, to add blocks, and to give a dynamic structure to your campaign. So for example, over here, the content is all in one single row of content. For example, here you have your title, here you have an image area. But what if you wanted to add a block that would allow you to add both an image and the text at the same time? In this case, you could pick, for example, this row. What that does is that it creates a dedicated space. Now the space appears empty, but what you can do with this space is add content into it. So for example, in the example I've just given, I want to add an image, and right next to that, I want to add a paragraph. So say, for example, you have the image of your product and you have a review right next to it. That's how it would work. You could also play around with more rows. Say, I really like this row. I really want to be able to reuse it in the future. I can save it by clicking on the little disk over here. So all I did was I clicked on the row and I'm clicking on the disk. I'm going to give it a name. Favorite row, because I really like it. I'm going to click save. And what that does is that it creates a block that can reuse time and time again. Now think of it, for example, differently. So say you have your social media block. You have a block that's dedicated to your whole social media accounts. And you don't want to have to redo it time and time again. You want to be able to use it fast and quickly every time. What you can do is you can save it and you can simply click on the little drop-down menu and go to My Saved Rows. And over here was the row I just saved, my favorite row. Now this is really time saving. It's honestly such a nice tool. I love using it because it allows me to save a lot of time on my campaigns over and over again. So if I have multiple campaigns going out in 1 week, I don't have to bother and do it manually each time. I can just create my blocks and reuse them depending on how I feel about it. So now that I've created my little content block, I can play around with it. So as you click on each element, you're going to see more and more options come up. So if I click on the row, then I have the global settings of my row. That would be, for example, the row color. Right now, it's set to transparent, but I could set it to another color. I could set it to green, I could set it to black, I could set it to white. And my content area, that would be here. That would be anything that's in between the lines. And I could also change the color of that as well. So green, red, whichever floats your boat. And of course, you can add the width, you can add borders. Personally, I like to keep it simple, so I like when it's quite clear what I'm trying to get across. But essentially, the best way to get familiarized with the editor is just to really play around with its different tools. You could align your text, make it vertical, down, whichever really works for you. You can stack on mobile or not. You could play around with the spacing. Honestly, it's just a really fun tool that you can really play around with. So I want to personalize the text. All I had to do was click on the text specifically on the paragraph block, and now I can change the font. I can make it bolder. I could change the font to make it maybe better. I can make the text bigger. So it really works exactly like you would in a Word document, for example. I can align my text. I can justify it. I could add space in between my letters and my lines. And I can play around with the padding to make it bigger, smaller, depending on what you like. The text color can also be edited, but this is a smart template, so all the colors are already added. In a regular template, you could change the text colors as you wish. So in one paragraph, for example, you could have different colors as you would like. In the image content block, that's also a very fun one. you can browse the image library. So the file manager essentially allows you to upload and import pictures. Upload would be directly from your computer. You would be able to go into your downloaded files and just upload them directly into your file manager. And what this does is that it hosts them for you, so you can reuse them time and time again. You could also import using a cloud if you have maybe a Google Drive that you want to import from, if you have a URL, maybe Facebook or so on. You can also do that by simply going into it and importing directly from these other platforms. But say, for example, you do not have pictures of your own and you really don't want to bother importing your own, you could also use our free image library by searching directly for pictures that resonate with you. So for example, I'm selling coffee, so I want a coffee brew picture. I can simply look it up, and what this does is that it comes up with all kinds of images that I can use for free without any worry about any copyrights or so on. So in this case, I'm gonna pick this little color, this little image, and I can simply insert it. And over here, I can personalize my text. Come discover our newest. Oops. And now I have my little paragraph with my little text, but I could also add all kinds of elements into it. So say, for example, a button. I can add a button, for example, and I could say, hey, discover our menu. And by clicking on this button, I can add a file, I can add a URL. If I have a website, I can use the link to my website. And as people would click on this button, they would be automatically redirected to your website. If, for example, my menu is a PDF, I can simply link file. And what this does is that I can upload a PDF directly from my computer. And again, people would simply click on it and they would automatically download it. Now, this is very important and essential because attached files are not a recommended practice. This is not something that you are allowed to do with our platform, as it badly impacts your reputation as a sender. So instead of having an attached file, you can simply link your file and people would click on the call to action to be redirected to said file. This is added security and really protects your reputation as a sender. Now, this is just one thing amongst many. You can add a divider, you can add a list, just if you have a bigger campaign, people want maybe a summarized look, you can add a list, you can add your socials. So for example, your Facebook, LinkedIn, anything of the sort, you can add your links to it, and you can add an icon. So say, for example, your Discord. Sorry. Sorry about that. So as I said, you can add different icons for different social media. You can personalize it. You can change the style of your icons, so maybe a more sober look, a more colorful look, a blue look. You have a lot of options to choose from. And again, you just have to add the URL. And as people click on the icons, as your contacts click on the icons, they will be automatically redirected to them. And say you're unhappy about the way it looks, just click on the block and click on delete, and it's going to be deleted. But say, oh no, I did not want to delete this. You can undo the deletion by clicking on the little arrows down here. So again, different things. I really recommend just having fun with this, trying out different things. If you're a little bit more tech savvy, you could play around with HTML, a little menu if you have different elements in your campaign and you want people to be able to click on them. You can add videos as well. So say, for example, I do not want this anymore. I can delete it and I can replace it with a video. So for example, I'm just gonna take this and drag it here. All I have to do is enter a URL. So either a YouTube or Vimeo URL. I already have a little one that's already ready to go. So I'm gonna choose this video. And what this does is that it automatically adds the video, and I can play around with the logo. So say, for example, this is a little bit too big. I'm not quite a fan. I want it to be round outline, dark icon, or light icon. And I want it to be really tiny and small. So see, this is something that you can play around with. You could also make it bigger, you can make it smaller. Really depends on what you like. So this is my video, but say I really want it to be much bigger. I want it to take the whole area. I simply have to take a row, drag it, drop it, again, add my content, enter the URL again that we just entered. And now I have my video that's going to be added to the full width of the video of the campaign. So it takes a little second just for it to fetch the video. And here you are. Now discover our menu. I can add a picture here, or I can add a GIF. So again, delete, go back to content, and you can choose a GIF from our GIF library. So I'm just going to search for them. I'm going to look up coffee, and it's going to give me a whole bunch of coffee GIFs that I can choose from. So yeah, kind of like this one. So I'm going to add that one. But I think you get the gist of it. This is just a really nice tool that gives you a lot of flexibility with things that you can add, play around with. You have your socials, you have different actions. So for example, for my button, I can add different actions like send an email, open a web page, and so on. But one of the coolest feature is that you can fully personalize your emails using merge tags. So merge tags are essentially information that you have in your list that you can leverage. So for example, names, first names. Say you have the first name of your contacts and you want to make this extra personalized. You can say, hey, first name, come get our 20% off. Now, I do need to warn you that this is a more premium feature. It comes with our growth plan, but it essentially allows you to really use all the information in your list to leverage that information and really foster a deeper bond with your contacts. It allows you to really reach out to them on a more personal level. You also have a button that allows you to see all the merge tags available in your list. So for example, the city over here, I have quite a few. So I have last name, first name. If I know for a fact that someone really is living in a specific area code, then I can refer to their city, like, hey, come discover our new location at city. And so they would feel like there is a coffee shop nearby that's really personal with them that they can actually visit and go to. This is quite a nice feature. It comes with our growth plan, but I would say it's absolutely worth it. So once you're somewhat happy with the way it looks, you can click on the little eye on the top right, and this will allow you to see a preview of what your campaign looks like. So this is what my campaign is going to look like on laptop, but I could also view it in tablet. A lot of people nowadays do not have laptops, and so it's really important to see what that looks like on both tablets and mobile, just to make sure that it really looks the way you want it to look. So as you can see, things are looking somewhat good, but another important part is checking if it looks good in dark mode. So as you can see, my logo is not as readable on dark mode, and that's normal. That's because lighter colors usually turn darker in dark mode, and that's something that you need to pay close attention to. This is why I really recommend playing around with the little preview. Make sure that it all aligns perfectly, that everything is visible and readable for your contacts using dark mode. Once you're somewhat happy with it, you can click save. And once that's done, you could send yourself a test email. Of course, you can also save this as a template. So say, for example, you want to be able to reuse it next week or the weeks after that, you can save it as a template, and that's going to be your starting point without having to redo everything from the beginning every time. So I'm just going to click close, and I'm going to take you to our campaign details, which is essentially the big details about your campaign. So for example, this is information that only you can see. Promotional campaign. This serves as a reference for me in the future. So say I want to create another promotional campaign in the future, I can just look this one up and duplicate it. This is my subject line, which my contacts are going to see as they receive my email. I could either generate one using AI, or I could simply copy and paste mine. So I already have one that I really want to add. So wake up to 25% of your favorite brew. You can use emojis using a web extension or by looking it up online, but honestly, it really adds a lot of dynamic to your text. It adds a bit of warmth and friendliness. So I really recommend using some emojis every now and then. If you're really out of inspo, you can generate a subject with AI. This is your sender name. I'm just gonna create mine. This is the name that your contacts are gonna see when they receive their campaign. So it's really important that it fits with your brand, that it tells us who you are, and that it isn't some random name. I'm gonna select my domain, which is why you need to pick an authenticated branded domain, just to make sure you don't end up in the spam of your contacts. Now, once you're happy with this, you've sent yourself a test, you've reviewed the colors, you're happy with how it looks, you can then proceed to schedule it. So you can choose a date or send it as soon as possible, or you could also specify a specific time, for example, for tomorrow at 9 a.m. And once you're happy with it, all you have to do is schedule your campaign or send it immediately, and then your contacts are going to receive it. So this was just a quick rundown of all the different elements that you can find in the email editor, but this is just a really fun tool that you can play around with. I really urge you to just go ahead, start a draft, send yourself tests, test out all the brand colors, all the different elements. And of course, if you ever have any question, our support team is always available to answer all of your questions. So that will be all for today's demo. We're excited to see you for another one, and I'm gonna be answering your questions in a second. Just gonna